No more living in the dark. The time has come to reassemble all those silenced videos. You're invited to view uncensored, unrestricted, and unadulterated.
But I think I should be very careful now, because even while the facts I will state are all true, I've got to think about your listeners, for example, that I don't absolutely terrorize them. I tell them exactly what the situation is. First of all, the British are running this operation, the British Empire. The British Empire is not a kingdom. It's an international financial power, which includes Wall Street, for example, our own country. And that's the power you're up against. They want to maintain the imperial tradition of Rome, which is what the British Empire's tradition is, adopted later. Now, therefore, you have to understand the way the British think, and very few Americans understand how the British think. They hear how they talk. They don't understand what's behind that talk, at least on the high level. There are two options we face right now. Apart from the obvious option we desire, is Obama should be thrown out of office now before he gets anywhere near an election. He can be thrown out for a number of reasons, for violations of the Constitution, and he can also be thrown out as an insane person, for which he's qualified. This man is actually a man of that type. Under the Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, this man is qualified to be suspended from the office of the president. All that would be required is the Vice President of the United States would utter such a finding, present it to members of the cabinet, and if they agreed, then the president would have to step back while the matter was being challenged. That would be the best solution. Or if he simply would resign for some reason.
All right, I want to stop you briefly. Why is it so important for him, the figurehead, to be brought down, A? But B, I agree with you. I've seen a lot of stuff that shows he's more than just a narcissist. He says there's 57 states. He bizarrely does full bows to anybody who's royal. He's saying more and more weird stuff. I mean, what's your intel? So I know you have an incredible intelligence network. I mean, are you hearing he's actually completely nuts? And what is the form of psychosis?
Well, he is actually the same thing as the Emperor Nero. He has in history an identity and a profile, which I presented in April of 2009, warning about what this guy was going to do. He is actually, somebody picked a guy whose mental state was that of the same as the Emperor Nero. Well, this is all part of the pattern. But I look at this thing from the end game. What's the end game here? Not what are the details of things that come up on the side. What we're headed with is something very soon. It's coming out of London, but the United States plays a key role in it. The United States has the greatest thermonuclear power for weaponry on this planet. A lot of it is concentrated in the Pacific Ocean, in our submarines. We can virtually obliterate much of this planet with one shot, that is one barrage, properly aimed. Now that's the threat that we're facing. The timing of that threat comes before the next election inside the United States. If this was intended earlier, but it was postponed. We had people in our Joint Chiefs of Staff who said, you can't do this. You have other people saying you cannot even think about this, because if you're thinking about a war with the parties that you're indicating, which include the British Empire and the United States under Obama working for the British Empire on this policy, you realize that you have the greatest threat to humanity imaginable. Now, whether the British do it or not, by controlling Obama, who controls the submarine fleet ultimately as Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. forces, whether they do that or not is uncertain. My view is the British have two intentions. Obama's doing what he's doing. He's not really very intelligent. He's a sick man. But he's doing it for this British monarchy, who have a whole policy of reducing the human population from 7 billion people to 1 billion people in a very rapid order. And that's where the evil is coming from. Now, the British, of course, are now, in their policy, are threatening to compel U.S. forces to be used to obliterate the targeted nations they intend to obliterate. And we have in our naval capability, the submarine capability, a typification of what our capability is to do that. Without us, without the United States and its forces being complicit with the British couldn't do it, even though they're the inspiration of the policy. So our situation is we've had our military and other people in other parts of the world recognize what this problem is and know we've got to stop the British attack. We know the only efficient way to stop this, and it could stop it, is to get Obama out of office. Now, he's not only impeachable because he's violated most of our Constitution. He could take a check, but the key thing here is that he is clinically insane. This man, I know I did back in April of 2009.
Mr. LaRouche, I apologize for interrupting you. Let's come right back on the other side and continue looking at this, because he's not mincing words here, and he's not hyping it.
But in this case, what's happening is the British are in control of this thing, and Obama's nothing but a British puppet. He's also insane. And its significance is that as President of the United States, with his insanity and the power he's using with the direction of the British, he could cause World War III, thermonuclear World War III. So if we don't remove him from power, as it stands now, here we got two options. You have to think of what's the British option. The British option is if they can't win it any other way, they are now prepared to order through the President of the United States the launching as of our submarine fleet in the Pacific, to launch the greatest capability in thermonuclear warfare that exists on this planet. Without the United States under control of the British, under Obama's control, that could not happen. Therefore, we have to get Obama out, because the most likely way to save this nation, if we continue to tolerate Obama, if he's continued to be president, they're not going to wait for the next election of the United States. The danger comes now. We don't know the exact date, but we're approached that point. Now, two things are, the British have two objectives. Now, the British know what, command knows exactly what they're doing when they're prompting the United States to unleash forces such as the submarine thermonuclear capability in the Pacific, and also the Atlantic. They know what they're doing. They are obviously not anticipating a pleasant trip. While the game includes the elimination of the Russia, China, India, and so forth, the immediate target for weapons attack is from the United States if it's working under the British direction, which Obama represents. In that case, then the target is principally against Russia, China, the other leading nations of Asia, including India. Those are the targets. Now, the British prefer not to take the risk of the repercussions of a full-scale thermonuclear attack on that part of the world and any other places they think is a threat to them. They would prefer to have us sign a treaty agreement with the British Empire, that is with Wall Street and London, and thus submit to the dictatorship of those powers. That way the British would get everything. It would be a bit slower than winning a thermonuclear war, but they would accept that because they don't want to be killed too. They just want the people they want to kill to be killed. So therefore we have two options. If we allow this president, Obama, to continue in the presidency, we are doomed, because the full repercussion of launching of a thermonuclear war. Our military are not guilty. Our military, our Joint Chiefs of Staff and people like that, and people in the intelligence community are of the same persuasion. They are fighting like the devil, and so far have helped to prevent this from happening. It was supposed to happen soon after the killing of Gaddafi. But our best military people were a key factor in preventing us, and some of our intelligence community were a key factor within the limits they have of power in this system, have delayed this thing so far. But we're now coming to the point that the British are getting desperate, and they're now pushing hard against Russia, against China, for total submission.